Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live-streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you. Jackie will now conduct roll call.
Member Abelson? Member Cooney?
Present.
Member Degali?
Here.
Member Ibarra?
I am present.
Member Nestor Brush? Member Perry?
Here.
Member Reese Brown? Member Smith?
Here.
Member Thompson?
Yeah.
Member Timothy? Member Toth?
Here.
Vice Chair Kamara? Chair Clark?
Here. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is introductions. I don't believe we need to do introductions at this time. I do know that we have a new member, but I believe we're going to have that on another item. So if everyone's okay with that, I will move on to public comment. Jackie, have we received any written public comments?
We have not received any written public comment.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, please raise your virtual hand and staff or I will call upon you. Okay. Do you see any hands, Jackie?
I do not see any virtual hands.
I don't either. So that concludes our public comment item. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which includes the summary of actions from our last meeting, November 21st of 2022. Are there any changes or comments from the committee? And does anybody want to pull an item on the consent calendar?
Yeah. Well, you can join with Sherry. So, oh, sorry, I didn't know that I was on.
Yeah, I wasn't. Oh, you meant him.
Well, I didn't mean you.
Sorry, guys. Anyone, do we have, sorry, have we received any written public comments? Jackie?
I'm sorry. We do not have any written public comments.
All right. If anybody from the public would like to speak, please raise your virtual hand and staff and I will call on you. So we're moving on with the consent calendar. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
You have a very quiet group today. My apologies. I will move that we accept.
Thank you.
I will
Member
second.
Toth.
And I will second.
And Member Smith is second. Thank you. Now Jackie will need to do a roll call vote.
Jackie, I think you're muted. I'm not hearing anything now.
Sorry. Member Abelson? Member Cooney?
Aye.
Member Degali? Member Degali? Member Ibarra?
Aye.
Member Nestor Brush?
Member Jelly, I was muted by the host. I was just able to figure out how to unmute. Yes. Sorry to interrupt, but the host muted me, so.
That's okay. Member Nestor Brush? Member Perry?
Yes.
Member Reese Brown? Member Smith?
Aye.
Member Thompson?
Yes.
Member Timothy? Member Toth?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kamara? Chair Clark?
Yes. Thank you very much. We'll now move to the regular agenda items. We have one action item introduced by Ying Smith regarding the appointment of member Donald Queen to the Paratransit Coordinating Council.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Ian Smith, Director of Mobility Programs. So I have an item here with the application from Mr. Don Queen, and Don is on the call here. And we received his application after last year, and then you form a subcommittee to review his application with members Harry, Poe, as well as member Ibarra. The subcommittee was not able to meet as we reported at your last meeting, but separately they talked to Mr. Queen on the phone, one-on-one, and asked him questions and also get to know him. So Mr. Quinn attended the November 21st, 2022 meeting, so he did meet that requirement. He is applying as a West County paratransit rider to fill that seat. So this is the information, and I believe your subcommittee has some comments as well as a recommendation for you. And I'm inviting any subcommittee member to speak to Mr. Quinn's application.
To speak to his application like we want him and he has the experience and we're thrilled that he's wanting to join the PCC, or what are you seeking, Ying?
Yeah, your input or a recommendation from the subcommittee.
Oh, well, definite recommendation. I think we were in 100% agreement. Deanna Vi and I on, was there anybody else? God, if I'm forgetting, somebody smack me, but I think it was just us. Ying was with us, but I think we're all in strong support. And are excited to have somebody who has firsthand experience joining the PCC to help us ensure that the work that we're doing is through the lens of people who ride paratransit. So we're extremely excited to have his application, his interest, and would love to recommend that he join the PCC. And Vi or Deanna, you should pop in if I'm not saying anything that you agree with, since I since I took it on for all of us. Sorry.
I think you covered all of it, Debbie.
Yep, and I would agree. This is was that a nomination? Do we need a second for it then, or was that a motion and we need a second?
I haven't done the motion yet.
Okay.
But does anybody else have any comments?
Member Dowgelli would just like to really thank you folks for the work you do, on that subcommittee. And I think you found yourself what I would call a winner.
Excellent. Excellent. Anyone else? Okay, I myself would like to thank you, Mr. Queen, for being part of the Paratransit Coordinating Council, and I echo everybody else. We are really, really happy to have you. Jackie, have we received any written public comments?
I'll get this yet. We have not received any written public comments.
Member Cooney, did I see your hand up? Okay. If anyone from the public would like to speak, please raise your virtual hand and staff or I will call on you. Do you see any hands, Jackie?
I do not see any virtual hands.
Okay. So if there are no further comments, do I have a motion to approve, or excuse me, to appoint Donald Queen to the Paratransit Coordinating Council as a paratransit rider representative for West County?
Member Dowgelli, so moved.
Dowgelli first, and Member Smith. Member Smith second. Okay, thank you very much, guys. And Jackie, can we get a roll call?
Member Abelson? Member Cooney?
Aye.
Member Dowgelli?
Yes.
Member Ibarra?
Aye.
Member Nestor Brush? Member Perry?
Aye.
Member Reese Brown? Member Smith?
Aye.
Member Thompson?
Aye.
Member Timothy? Member Toth?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kamara?
Yes, finally, my apologies, people.
Chair Clark?
Yes. Thank you all. Welcome, Rashida. The next item on the agenda is an informational update introduced by Ying Smith on the methodology and process utilized to capture and track each operator's unmet needs.
Thank you, Chair, again, Ying Smith. This one, we have this item for a few meetings. And I think at the last meeting, Vice Chair Kamara has a good suggestion of building this tracking sheet into the claim form. Just for your information, the Measure J claim form, you will have the opportunity to provide comment for this upcoming year's claim form. And we usually have that item in March. So with that suggestion, if you agree, we'll build into the draft claim form for your review in March, and then you will have the opportunity to provide further comments on the overall Measure J Program 15 claim form. And on Monday, Vice Chair Kumara has some comments on this particular item.
Yeah, so one of the things that I was concerned about as we've been working on this for the past few PCC meetings is the bandwidth that each agency may have to fill this information and provide it regularly. But we also understand the importance of documenting the unmet need. And I do believe that as 2CTAs starts to focus and direct its efforts on some of the unmet needs and gaps in services that they're going to be addressing, that documenting this information is going to be important. That's the reason why it was added as a question to our Measure J application to begin with. So my suggestion was that this be taken to the different operators, and that the different operators or transit agencies that partake of the Measure J funds be prepared to bring their best documented efforts during the next application cycle for 2CTA to be able to review. And then we kind of use it as a baseline going forward on how this information can potentially direct efforts into managing the unmet need. As we know, 2CTA is working on a really huge project, which is the ATS plan. You never know if what is documented in the unmet need can be addressed by some of what is going to be handled with the ATS efforts. Those are my comments.
Do we have any other comments from the committee? Any comments from the operators that are represented on this?
Johanna has her hand up. Johanna Pollock.
I was going to go with the operators first
Okay.
and see. Deanna, Bridget.
No, not too much. I know that we are trying our best to track the information that's relevant to our operation, that some of the things that are on there just really don't apply. And so we're just kind of ignoring those categories. But we're doing what we can to get that information.
I'll start with committee members first. Member Thompson, you had your hand raised.
Well, I was just going to echo what Rashida said. You know, it is going to be a challenge to have staff track some of this. I mean, you know, we've always done it somewhat anecdotal, and we know what the unmet needs are in our region. It is going to be difficult to actually have our dispatchers sit down and actually figure out how to fill in some of these forms, because again, just as the last comment, a lot of it is not particularly relevant. So, you know, we're happy to kind of figure out how to do this going forward, but there are definitely some challenges as a getting the staff to be able to up to speed on how to do it.
Joanna?
Yeah, I was going to look at the form. I concur with what Rashida said, having the bandwidth to do this, and I am, as a WICTAC member, not on the PCC, more than willing to help any of the agencies in West County pull this together. But I guess I was going to ask the bigger question. It is anecdotal. I mean, I think we could all sit in a room and list off the top 10 things that clients ask for or tell us they like or don't like or want more of. Is the claim form in FY24 going to change significantly, Ying? Or, I mean, I'm just trying to think of what the means to the end or the end to the means. I'm trying to figure out where this feeds up into.
So I'll give a little more history, which was the question on the last claim form was, do you have any unmet needs? So all those unmet needs were put together. There's had a subcommittee formed and we put all of them together. Then we had everybody look at it, right? Then to pass it out. Anybody, if it doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply to you. You don't need to collect that information. The idea was twofold. One, to start collecting that information, just saying it doesn't necessarily mean that we really know how deep of a need that is. And then the second was to really have this information so that if any additional funds came up, grant funding, anything else, that the operators would have that statistical data ready to go so that we could apply for funding. So that it was twofold in that.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, and then what we had then asked was that operators come every other meeting with information about that. And I know what Rashida had said, and we talked about was that just seemed a little unrealistic, but that we wanted to ask the operators to continue to collect that information so that when you fill out your claim form and you say there's unmet needs, there's something behind it other than I received a couple of phone calls. So that really was the purpose, was to make it easier on people to collect data of their unmet needs. If it's not working, then it's not working. Member Toth.
I was curious what Rob was referencing, being that some of it's not topical.
Some of it doesn't apply, I guess. Is that what you were saying, Tom? Member Thompson?
Yeah, I mean, because if the unmet needs in our particular, if one of the unmet needs listed is that seniors cannot get trips within our service area, that doesn't apply, because we offer above and beyond day-to-day service within our service area. So it's things like that. You know, some of the questions were, how many trips are you unable to provide to seniors, for instance, and it would be 0, so there's nothing for me to track. Just some of the way I don't have the questions in front of me. It's a couple of months since I've looked at them, but it was those kind of areas that were already providing the service, so it's not an unmet need.
So you would just have like an NA next to that question because it's not topical.
Yeah, but again, it just comes down to, if I walk into dispatch now, I've got one dispatcher who's operating a fixed route, dial a ride, all of our entire system. So it's just functionally, it's difficult to be able to ask them to track an additional set of questions.
Is there anything on that form that is reasonable for you to collect? I mean, or are you meeting all the needs of your riders?
Oh, of course not. I mean, I'm not saying that.
No, so I would say again, kind of what Rashida had said was this was based on everybody's unmet needs that they listed last year in their claim form. So that's why we came up with those questions, because they were listed. But it isn't meant to be an exhaustive list. And if it doesn't apply, then it doesn't apply. Or if there's any unmet needs out there, if you could collect that data. Joanna?
I'm kind of not done with my thought because it takes me that long on a Monday. So could these, I don't know how many of us are operators. I'm not an operator, but I run a travel training program. I hear all the time unmet needs. Everyone's telling me where they want to go and why they can't get there and what they really ideally want. But can this be customized almost to the particular agency? I know there's 5, 7, 8, I don't know how many people on here provide service that would capture based on the FY23 question, here's unmet needs. Well, obviously, if someone wants to go in West County to downtown Oakland, you don't provide that service. So it's not an unmet need. It's not even a need that is, it's a wish. It's not a need. So I'm just trying to think of a way that this could be really useful, because I'm agreeing that it does funnel up. There is new money. It's not even a question if there is Measure X money. Where it goes, who knows? And what it justifies when we go down the line with the ATSP, that would probably be a logical place to ask oh, well, we are hearing over and over that people need this.
And I think that's kind of what we're saying here. We took that form and we customized it based on the unmet needs that every agency put in their claim form. So we did that. We passed it out to everybody. We asked everybody, please look at this. Does this work? Does it not work? What do you think? We made edits to that. And then we sent it out. And what we're hearing is it's still not working for some people, and we're totally fine with that. It's literally just a form for you guys to collect data on any type of unmet needs. If there's something that works better for you, if there's an unmet need, please collect that information. The two things that we're asking is that when you answer that unmet needs on your claim form this year, to have data for that claim. And however you want to collect that, that is up to you. And then two, we would like everybody to be collecting that data so that we have data to apply for additional funds.
Sorry to dominate. Again, because I represent West County. Let's say, for example, one of our agencies hasn't even submitted a FY23 claim. The data that we have received in the past hasn't been passed the sniff test, and they don't collect any data. What does that mean? Does that claim get rejected? Potentially? And they don't get the funds?
Potentially, they don't get funds.
Okay. I just want to, you know, I might get a call from one of our operators saying, you know, this is not information I can provide or whatever, I don't have, or I don't know. And I'll just say, well, it's part of the claim form, right? Because that's what it is.
I think the plan is to incorporate this into next year's claim form so we can have better data to answer the question. So instead of a yes or no question, is like that kind of show us more information. I would suggest we start as like the starting point to have a structure to gather the information. It's not, I don't think we want to necessarily use it against any operator of not meeting unmet needs. I want to be careful we don't interpret it that way, especially in the first year. That's I would suggest that we open up as an information gathering. So we have some comparison, we have a baseline to work with and improve from there.
Vice Chair Kamara?
I think we would all agree that one of the biggest issues we have in Contra Costa County is that we do have some transportation options out there, but there are huge unmet needs. And most of the transportation options that we have there are so very specific. It's very difficult for people to, you know, for them to kind of cross over. You find themselves either in a specific age or a specific demographic or a specific location or just outside the paratransit boundary or not making enough money to do this or making too little money to do that. So we always find some kind of unmet need. And I think that somebody mentioned earlier about the information gathering. I mean, gone are the days when we just kind of filled out, and this actually didn't just start with this last go round. A few years ago, just before COVID, when I was put on the distribution panel, in other words, the group of individuals that actually the applications were brought in front of us for us to review them. And, you know, we're just gonna, you know, to CTA, kudos to them. They're signing off on the money. And then the questions for quite a few of us, and Janice was involved in that, and Lisa Hammond was involved in that. Some of the questions that we had were, you know, how do we hold them accountable to the service that they currently provide? You know, don't just put poor service out there, put quality service out there because you're getting funds to do it, number one. Number two, what are the unmet needs? There was an example in which two cities sat side by side with each other, but because this one didn't have enough reservation agents to take calls, it overflowed to another city. And they were either using their vehicles because they just couldn't tell these people no to go give these people trips. Well, the question I had was, instead of giving all of this money to this city, they're clearly not meeting the needs of 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 people. So if this city is going to do those trips for them, then give them the money. Don't leave them deficient. So the purpose of gathering this information, especially moving forward, and especially all the attention that we're now giving Contra Costa County and its constituents, we're trying to make transportation accessible to all in Contra Costa County. So the unmet needs, we're not trying to make this into just some kind of difficult paperwork that people have to fill out. These are real life issues, whether it happens to 1 or 2 people or happens to 200 or 300 people. Let's determine who they are, then let's categorize them on how we can slowly start to tackle them. But we're not going to be able to tackle them unless we actually do the discovery work, unless we actually start documenting it. And we're not going to wait for a whole nother study to help us document it. This is one way for us to be engaged in it. Every time we go fill out that application, we bring it. They gather it. There's something big that's happening on the horizon with County Connection, with Contra Costa County, and with what they're going to do. This gives them just a whole nother platform and another checklist. If we take care of the call center, boom, we've taken care of that. Oh, by the way, we have this document with this unmet needs that they've been collecting for the past 5 years. And apparently this always rises to the top. Let's draw some attention to that. So this gives us an opportunity to do that. The idea is not to bog anybody down, but the idea is that the best way that you can, let's all kind of get involved in the data gathering process as best as we can, so that we can start fitting these into the categories that are necessary for us to be able to make a difference. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Thank you, Rashida. That was a great soapbox. And I thought you were saying gone are the days where we're throwing money out there and not asking for any data, because there's tons of data. And I don't know how many of you use Route Match, but some of my cities do. And once we started asking for that data, we realized we're missing a lot of people that could be getting trips. So I think there's plenty of data. And yes, please, no more studies.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. Do we have any other comments about this? This isn't a vote. This is just a discussion item. Do we have any other comments about this before I move on to public comments?
Yes, I have a comment about it. Being a writer, I had an unmet need from the start. And I raised that when I became a member of this commission. And although this may not address the unmet need in my section of the county, certainly with the money available, let's stop the studying and let's put the money where the rubber meets the road and get these people into some transportation to get them from point A to point B efficiently. And I think with what has been said here today, all we have to do is to act on the recommendation and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Smith. Anybody else? Jackie, have we received any written public comments on this matter?
We have not received any written public comments.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this right now? Please raise your hand. I don't see any hands. Do you, Jackie?
I do not see any hands.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is, again, an informational update from Ying on the recruitment of new Paratransit Coordinating Council members.
Thank you, Chair. Just one clarification. This is for the recruitment material. So, sorry for that causing any confusion. At your November meeting, you reviewed the draft recruitment materials. and staff have since reached out to all of you to ask for feedback, like specific feedback on the recruitment brochure as well as the letter from the chair. And we received some comments, and staff have since updated the recruitment materials to reflect your comments. And we believe this is the very good information at this point to have some clear information background on the PCC as well as the requirements on the process of applying to be a member. So we would like to share this with you. This is the revised outreach material, and encourage you to provide the brochure as for the operators. Encourage you to list the brochure where it's appropriate for you on your website or printed materials, and would also would like to get your input on who to send the letter to, as well as the letter and the brochure to, and the specific individuals or agencies you should send this letter to. So again, this is the information item, and we're looking for your input on the target audience for this member recruitment effort.
Okay. Thank you, Ying. Does anybody have any, comments, but also suggestions for CCTA staff on who they think these recruitment materials should be sent to? Again, there's a brochure and there's a letter. And we all had an opportunity in December when those got sent out to give our edits. And so that's been done and sent back out. Besides actually putting them out there, in our transportation vehicles and doing recruitments, does anybody have any other ideas of where to send these materials to?
Are you talking about for the applicants for the PCC?
Yes, recruiting for members
Right.
of the PCC, yes.
So I think definitely to all of the nonprofit organizations that serve populations that use paratransit. So certainly the what was the renamed, the ARC they renamed, what did they rename? Carol McCrary's organization. Help me out.
Disability.
Thank you. Vistability. Thank you. So like Vistability, I think the VISE committee, the Developmental Disabilities Council, I think Choice in Aging, right? We would maybe Mobility Matters, because some of those clients may have had paratransit prior to having to need to use the volunteer driver program because paratransit wasn't meeting their needs, but they had a history of it. Like, I think we can distribute to nonprofit organizations in addition to having them on the vehicles.
Joanna?
Why don't you guys just make me a member? I don't know what category I'd fill. So obviously the senior centers would be a good place to have them, but John Joya does a very good e-newsletter and seems to reach a lot of people in West County with advertising on positions for sitting on boards. I'd recommend going through his staff. And the other thought was, I had one. Oh, are these meetings, Ying, going to stay virtual? Because that also makes a big difference. Us out in West County, getting to the office in CCTA, especially if we're using any form of transit, paratransit, whatever, it's hard. So I don't know what I think the policy says we have to go back to in person, or are we going to keep hybrid, or I don't know what's going on.
Do you want me to take that? So we are still anticipating returning in March to in-person meetings with a virtual component for the public. So we're monitoring the state of emergency that's supposed to end at the end of February, and then the local guidelines from the county as well. But as of now, we are anticipating potentially returning in March.
Does that mean that there would be no option to be virtual if someone wanted to be?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
So there's no hybrid
bill, but it's very tedious. There's all these requirements. It's 20% of the year. So the intent would be that the members would return in person, and then we'd have a component that's a virtual for the public.
Thank you.
Member Toth?
Yeah, this is not an agendized topic, but since you brought it up there, I think we're gonna have some feelings about that. So if we wanted to weigh in on accessibility of meetings regarding accessibility, we might want to make them accessible. That's all.
Yeah, and we would love to continue doing this like everyone else. But the legislation just isn't there
Yeah.
to allow us to do it, unfortunately. There's the Assembly Bill, I think it's 2449. That's the one that allows for a just cause or emergency situation, but it's not a permanent thing. So it would go back to the old Brown Act requirements once AB 361 ends. And AB 361 is dependent upon either a state of emergency or local guidelines from the county that would allow us to continue to meet virtually. So we are with you. We would love to continue as well. We're hoping that a legislative piece would allow that, but unfortunately it did not.
So could we have CCTA legal review what would be required for that? Or if it's something from the county, then we could approach the Board of Supervisors? Is that the way that we would do that? I mean, we would just need some guidance because I think that it's really an unfortunate situation that we would create an accessibility for people who have to take paratransit to get to and from these meetings. And require them to do that. So I just, if there's a pathway for us to look at that, I'm not saying for every committee of CCTA, but certainly for those that are addressing accessible transportation, and we are asking people who utilize accessible transportation to attend meetings, it just seems ridiculous that we're going to put up that barrier. So I don't know if it's possible, but I feel like if I don't say something, then
we totally agree with your point. If we could find an assembly member to back a legislative piece and get it to actually pass.
before March.
Right.
Well, so we are having our legal review, everything that's out from the county right now, the local guidelines for holding safe public meetings, and just making sure that there's no other avenue that we could take to at least utilize AB 361 through the end of the year. After that, though, unless there's another legislative piece that comes out or that we could get an assembly member to back. And I know I think last year, there was a lot of, legislative pieces out there, but unfortunately, most of them did not get adopted. And so, unfortunately, that's what we have to go on is our, California law that allows us to meet virtually. Otherwise, we have to go back to the old Brown Act, which, if we know in advance and somebody wants to meet from, say, their home or office, it would have to be agendized on the agenda. And then we'd have to post the agenda at that location, and they'd have to have it open to the public. So it goes back to the old Brown Act requirements. Assembly Bill 361 is good through the end of the year as long as we meet the requirements. So that's what we're having our legal review right now, just to see if there's any way to continue beyond February with the state of emergency ending.
So it is in review.
Yeah.
Okay. But yes, the Brown Act is the Brown Act.
Yeah, it'll be talked about at the February board meeting if anyone is interested in attending.
Okay. Joanna?
I would think that the Center for Independent Living, possibly the MTC group, I would think some of these, louder voices, bigger voices. No one's bigger than you, Debbie. No one's louder than you. Just kidding, girlfriend. But those are the bigger advocacy groups. And if they didn't successfully get a sponsor, and if they can't get the state to do this, and if I haven't heard anyone else doing it, I'm not that optimistic, but it seems logical that, especially when we're dealing with the issues we deal with in this group, but transportation in general should be more transparent or available or flexible. Anyway, end of story.
Okay. Since it's not on the agenda, I'm going to wrap that up, but it sounds like the county is doing research. Maybe we can get an update on that. Probably in the next meeting, make sure that that is on the agenda so we can get an update on that. I'm sure we'll all know ahead of time because we'll need to know where we're going in March, correct? whether we're all going to Walnut Creek or whether we're doing it virtually. All right.
Yeah, and our board meeting's on February 15th, so I will send an email after that and let everyone know what the outcome is and the board's decision.
Thank you, Terry Ann.
You're
Appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to go back to, we're back to the member recruitment documents. We got a little bit of a list going to give to CCTA staff. I think we can continue to email and say, hey, it'd be great if you could send this out, send the brochure out to, that would be wonderful. Does anybody else have any other ideas of where recruitment material for people to be on the Paratransit Coordinating Council should be sent to? Jackie, have we received any other written public comments on this item?
We have not received any written public comments.
Okay, if anyone from the public would like to speak, please raise your hand. I don't see anyone. Jackie is shaking her head no, that she does not see anyone either. All right, I'm going to move on to the next item. The next item on the agenda is reports. And we have the Service Review Advisory Committee. Does anyone who attend the most recent Service Review Advisory Committee meeting want to provide a report?
Madam Chair, you still have item 5D.
Oh, my goodness, I scrolled too far. I'm so sorry. You're right. 5D, the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan, ATSP update.
Thank you. It's actually very brief. I'm just doing a verbal update. And at the December 21st meeting, the last meeting of the CCP Authority Board meeting, the board approved staff as well as the task force recommendation to for a framework of a coordinating entity for accessible transportation. And they also approved staff to continue to seek feedback from the authority board as well as the task force in the process of establishing this coordinating entity. Our staff report as well as the presentation for the December 21st meeting has quite a bit of details, and I encourage you to review it. It provides the framework, and it also goes into details of the different components of this coordinating entity, the entire framework. The task in front of staff of this early part of 2023 is to develop the Office of Accessibility and Equity. So that would be a new office. It's actually going to be a one-person office. We're going to request the board to authorize the recruitment of a new accessibility and equity program manager. Quite a long name, but that would be a person who will help run this program in looking at short-term implementations, for example, like right, as well as building this structure to allow us have that structure to move forward in the long. So we will continue on the task force meetings every other month, starting in February. In addition, we're having a special January meeting with a subgroup of the task force. We call the working group, which is the same working group with some changing members. That meeting is held tomorrow. It's not one active meeting, but at the February 9th task force meeting, you will see more details, and you're all encouraged to join us virtually, still virtual meeting, and provide the feedback if you're interested in this topic. That concludes my report on this one. It's a very brief one, but just want to give you the loop on the program.
Do we have any comments or questions from board members on this item? Okay. Anybody from the public? Joanna?
thanks, Ying, for reviewing. I think that was last week, the the CCTA board meeting last Wednesday night. I did want to also bring up that fortunately you're getting more help because Peter's coming back part-time. Is that going to help with this particular ATSP effort?
Yes, Peter Engel will return as a part-time, I think there's a terminology for it, like retired helpers member to assist on the overall program. And Peter and I with team will work on specific tasks. So I personally, I look forward to having him back.
I bet. And I think what came through really clearly to me on that board meeting was the amount of work and the number of goals and the fact that this plan has a big vision, but there isn't the bandwidth. That was the word that kept being used. There isn't the bandwidth to implement more than is being done right now. So I am, of course, one of those eager people that just wants to see everything happen at once. But I'm glad to hear you're going to have a new staff person, plus Peter's returning for, I think, a year part-time as a retired annuitant. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that was my take on that meeting.
Thank you, Joanna. Anybody else? I did have a question. Could you send us out information on that February 9th meeting in case anybody wants to attend, or does everybody have that information already? Could we send that out to our board members? You said that was the meeting to attend if anybody had any feedback on.
I think I want to, that is, will be when the agenda and the materials are ready, we'll post it on our website. And I probably defer, we probably offline talk to Jackie and Karen to see if we do a special mailing. Because all our, we have our proper, like, typical way how we pass out information, but I just Karen and Jackie afterwards to see how we, whether we were able to do a special mailing.
So what is the name of that meeting then, so that we?
Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan Task Force meeting. It's one of the public meetings that is available on our website. The meeting agenda and materials will be available on our website.
And that's February what?
February 9th.
February 9th. Okay. Okay. Board Member Toth.
I had some just general feedback about the way that CCTA does different notices and different processes for different committees, whether it's the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan Implementation Committee or the PCC or whatever. It varies from committee to committee. And so it may be hard for people to know, because it's not through a calendar invite, how they're going to be getting to that, where some do calendar invites and some don't. So I just want to make the broad recommendation that we figure out how to do things uniformly across the board, and people should be able to request to be added to distribution lists for meeting agendas for any meeting, right? And then it would be, if it comes in the form of a calendar invite with agenda and whatever, then that's the way it would come to those people. But certainly, like, that's the way that it works when you do the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors and you want to go to the Transportation, Water, and Infrastructure Committee. You ask to be added to that distro, and then you get the information. So I just think that we should be a little more uniform and less confusing for members of the public, and particularly people with disabilities and older adults who might have difficulty trying to figure out how this all works. That it should be a pretty basic process, and we should be able to forward and do outreach around it and things like that. So I mean, that may be a conversation for another day, but if we're trying to make this accessible and get people to show up and participate, then we should probably work on some of those other things too. Just a recommendation.
Terry Ann.
Member Toth, we do have a location on the website where you can sign up for the newsletter or any of the different committees. We did add the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan Task Force. Sorry, that's a mouthful. We did add that as an option. So you can go to the website at any time and sign up for any of the different committees, and you will be put into that distribution list, and then we send it out through MailChimp. So we send out a notification to the committees, and then we also send out the MailChimp to everyone who's subscribed to that. And if you'd like, Jackie can get you the link of exactly where it's located on the website. And that way you can kind of pick what options you want, whether it's newsletters, this committee, that committee. It'll let you kind of customize which distribution list that you go on to.
Thank you. Thanks for that information. Do we have any other comments before we move on to public comments? Do we have any comments from the committee about the ATSP update? Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan Update. Okay, Jackie, have we received any written public comments?
We have not received any written public comments.
If there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand. I don't see anyone. All right. So now we move on to the next agenda item, which is reports. And does anyone who attended the recent Service Review Advisory Committee meeting want to provide a report? Okay. I don't know who might specifically, does anybody know who specifically?
Yeah, it's typically Janet Abelson goes to that, and I think Kim Ridgway also goes to that. So I
Okay.
think those folks, I don't think any of them are here, but I did see that Jim Donnelly is here, and he's the new chair of the Senior Mobility Action Council. So at least you'll have a report on that.
Throw me under the bus, huh, Debbie?
So we don't have any for the Service Review Advisory Committee, so we will move on to the Senior Mobility Action Council.
Yeah, this is Jim Donnelly. I'm the new chair of the Senior Mobility Action Council, and we just had our first meeting. We've changed the meeting date from Mondays to the third Tuesday of the month at 9:30. And just getting organized on what we're going to try to accomplish this year. Looking for new people and new energy all the time. So thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Anybody have anything for Jim?
I would just say, I'm sorry, I should have raised my hand. Here, let me go. All right, look at me, I'm raising my hand. I appreciate Jim is new to the position, but not new. He was the last 2 years, he was the president of the Advisory Council on Aging, but he's definitely new to his chair of the SMAC committee role. And it would be really, really great if folks decided that they wanted to start attending those meetings and being a part of the work that's being done there, so that we can form a bridge between the work that's happening in the community and the work that's happening at CCTA and all the transit organizations. So it would be a really beautiful thing. I just wanted to put in that plug and thank Jim for taking over those reins.
Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, I've been a member of SMAC though for the last 5-6 years, and you know, I saw when we used to have 25, 30 people show up at a meeting. We're kind of at a low ebb right now, and we want to build back up, because in the past we've done some really good things, and we'll do really good things in the future with help.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. If we have no other comments on that item, I'm going to move down to item 7. Correspondence and communications. Does anyone have anything to share correspondence? Jackie, did we receive any correspondence?
We have not received any correspondence.
Okay, so we'll move on to 8, which is future agenda items. If there are any topics that members would like to have agendized for a future meeting, please raise your hand. I would like, obviously we're going to have it, but just an update on Brown Act and continuing to meet virtually. Member Toth?
Thank you. I want that too. I also think we should have Ying be a standing item on our agenda regarding updating us on the ATSP. Like that should just be a standing item that we have, kind of like we have the SRAC and SMAC. It would be great as long as that's going on, that we know that we're going to get that update. That would be fantastic. And I think not just in terms of like what our process is, but I would love for us to be updated on specifically the Rashida's like one seat ride pilot, like what's happening there. Like, so not just like where the plan is headed, but where the pieces of the plan that are actually rolling out right now, what they're looking like, any challenges that we're having, any successes we're having. And I understand it's not going to be statistically significant data that we're collecting in month one, but certainly operationally, it would be great for us to be updated on how that's going.
I'd like to get just some update on Measure X funding, where that's coming from and where that's being spent and kind of who makes those decisions. I know Peter gave us a little update on his last meeting, but I'd love to get a little more information on that.
Yes, Chair and Member Todd, those two are closely related, so I just ask for some flexibility to allow staff to kind of either combine or separate those items. How the Measure X being used in accessible transportation.
Great. Yes, that would be totally fine.
Thank
you. Thank you for that. And then, of course, well, that'll be part of the transportation update. Anything else that anybody else has that they would like to talk about?
So the next meeting is, we're in January, February, March, right?
Yes.
So then we're rolling out the new claim forms, more or less, right? Or at least a draft of the claim form.
Yes.
And then I think the allocation monies, I'm just saying Ying because I've had some history here. I think the claim forms are due back in May. Is that right? Or did they go out in May and then they're due back in June? I can't remember. You guys
They're usually due back in July.
in July. Okay.
Yeah.
So the estimates go out maybe in May with the claim form, and then those are returned and reviewed by the review committee. I'm just saying that all that seems to happen all the time. Every time I turn around, we're in another phase of that. And so maybe an agenda item to talk about claim form questions, or allowing people a chance to talk about the new claim form or something like that should go in the March agenda. That's my point.
Yeah, you're correct. According to the notes I have here, the March meeting, we're going to review the claim and make any adjustments. So that's what we do in according to our calendar. The estimates goes out in May, and then the claim forms are returned to staff sometime at the beginning July, and you will review the claim form at the July meeting. That's assuming we get the estimates all like per schedule, right? Hopefully we're on schedule this year.
Anybody else? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Please raise your hand, virtually or otherwise. I don't see anybody. Okay. Well, thank you very much. This concludes our meeting, and the meeting was adjourned at 3:08 p.m. Thank you for your time, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Jackie, can you hear me?
Member
It's-
Queen?
No, it's me, Sarah, that member.
Hi.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hey.
I just wanted Member Queen to know that the meeting's been adjourned, if he wanted to log off.
It's even.